StreamYard.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Because I was almost forgetting that. Sorry.
It doesn't seem like there's an echo. Is anybody getting an echo?
Comment 999 if you have an echo.
999.
Everyone always says comment at once. I was like, let's comment the 999.
Oh, okay, I like it.
Julie
Hi,
said her book
Caleb.
launches tomorrow. Congratulations.
Oh, that's
I'm very
amazing.
excited.
Congratulations. Where the hell did Andreas go? We lost you. He left us.
No, I didn't. I'm here.
Do you see him, Ice, on Instagram?
Yeah, he's just frozen.
Oh, he just dropped for me.
Ashley says, hey guys, super excited for this topic.
Wait, so Caleb said 999. Did we say that means we are echoing or we're not? Oh.
I think you have to add me again, by the way.
Well, I can. Oh, Julie said he's gone on here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. He's gone.
So you want to introduce the topic for today, Rosie?
I will. Andreas, are you good? Okay. Yay. He's coming back. So yes. So we wanted to talk about what Andreas and I were brainstorming. What do we want to talk about for our live? And we thought this would be a fun topic. Especially, I think after some conversations, Ice, you and I had about business last week. And then I was inspired yesterday because I saw this post by Steve Jobs where he talked about how he only hires A players and he doesn't hire B or C players. And if you're Steve Jobs and you have a ton of money that you can throw into teams, that is a strategy that you can deploy, but that's not the average strategy. And it's not a strategy I would recommend with my talent management background working for corporate companies. Andreas similarly talked about his experience as a CEO and why that's not a scalable strategy. And so then we thought we'd bring you into the conversation, Ice, because you're building a new business and give you some food for thought as you're thinking about how to scale the types of hires you should be making, how to be considering A players versus B and C players, how they all have their role. And then even me, not only from my talent strategy background, but also as a Clifton Strengths coach, how you don't have to be an A player to work from your strengths. And you can get a lot out of people if you know how to leverage them and you have the right people managing them. So it's really about being strategic. And to me, it's like, it's nice in theory to want to work with all high performers, high achievers, but it's not reality. And it's actually like, we'll save all of my other comments for later, but it's really not a sustainable business model. Again, unless you have a ton of money that you can just throw out there. And even then it still comes with a lot of challenges. So anything you'd add, Andreas, to the topic that I didn't hit on to tee it up?
The only detail is if you are one of the larger companies like an Apple, sure, you can, when they were early on and when Steve Jobs was around, yeah, he could hire a bunch of A players and that would still work. But as you scale your business, or if you're not the number one company in the world, you just can't find enough A players and you can't afford them either. So even though that's great advice to always strive to hire better people, in reality, for 999% of the rest of the world, like that's not an option. So following the advice will make you stagnant. And I've seen companies who are searching for years for the right unicorn only to realize that they wasted so much time and effort. So that was
saving me time.
Exactly. You are already, like, obviously everyone you have hired so far are an A player in your company, Ice. Like there's no discussion about that. I'm trying to be nice, including you, A+. But going forward, we thought this was an important topic for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're on the call, so I'm trying to be nice.
Yes, there's no way to know. But, and I think even like partners, right? If you're like a new entrepreneur, you don't want your partner to be a B player. You need your partner to be an A player, right? Like, and when you have a small team, to that point, Andreas, like, yes, that makes sense, but there's a point where it doesn't. And the people up here should be A players. You don't have to have your support levels be A players. And I would argue that you're better off with them not being A players to some extent. Like the majority of them should be B players. And again, as you're scaling your business, I see Ice processing. I love to watch Ice process her thoughts.
I was taking notes.
Yeah, what are you thinking? Share the processing.
Very funny. I was kind of reflecting on what you just said and also thinking about Brenda making a point that she only stayed at her last job because she had a great manager. And my cousin also said the same. And like not having corporate background experience, or I don't foresee myself getting a job. I want to take those things into account. So when I hire the person that manages my team, make sure that they're taking care of them and also makes them feel seen so that there's like growth within the company. And I think that's the type of A level players I want, not just like skill set of technical skills.
A+.
I'm not laughing at your comment.
I saw Venus.
Andreas looked like he's in a sound booth and about to record in 90s boy band music
Wow,
video.
that's really specific, but also
Quit
really accurate.
playing games with my heart. I can't sing.
Wow. And now to pivot to Alana's non-Vina comment, which is actually very thoughtful. She said two things. So one, it's very hard to correctly determine if someone is an A employee without testing the waters on the job for at least 90 days. So 100% agreed.
90 days.
And then Alana, and I guess let me put these comments up. So that was her first comment. And then her second comment was, I've had success building up a B player into an A player, parallel to gaining their respect and most importantly, loyalty, which is overall better for retention. So also 100% agreed. It's like
Really good
redefining
comments.
what an A player looks like. And for me, a lot of that comes back to like, if you know how to use their strengths, they can be an A player when they're using their strengths in that. Like, it's like redefining what that means for you. So yes, Alana, brilliant as always.
Yeah. I reacted on 90 days. And I would say in a corporate setting, the first 30, they are drinking from the fire hose and just trying to understand who everyone is. And then the next 30 to 60, they are actually understanding what they have to deliver. And then they need another 30 days to deliver that. And after that, you will know if they were truly a culture fit or if we're able to, basically add the value required.
Yeah. Agreed.
Oh, we saw Kayla joining as well, Kayla Kraft.
Oh, hello, Miss Kayla.
Hello.
I wanted to send her a text message. I forgot about that.
Oh no, we were going to talk about her though. So now what do we do?
Now we have to shift topic.
Okay, wait, one more comment. Jake said, I found that in the beginning, you seek as many loyal players as you can, and then often you may outgrow your team members, or the company grows and they have grown as well. Then they get promoted. I like that. True. Yeah, and Jake, I think Jake's still in the corporate world too. I feel like he's asked some good questions on some other lives around that. Yes, 100%. The loyalty is huge, especially early on when you're building out a new business. Trust, loyalty, and aligned values.
Yeah, I was about to say the aligned values are key, and establishing a culture on purpose early on, so you know what your culture values are. So you hire people with culture fit, as well as, I love the GWC, get it, want it, capacity to do it. And it has to be a yes on all three. And we talked about that in another live, that just because you had the capacity to do something in a previous job doesn't mean you have a capacity in this specific setting. But can I just go back super briefly to what Elena said about hiring B players and then building them up to A players?
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really good point, that people are often looking for the unicorn and they're not willing to invest in someone who might not be as experienced, but they really want to do it and they have absolute capacity to grow into the role as well. So yeah, the time frame will be a little longer and you have to set the bar at a different level, but hiring B to push them into an A over time, let's say a 12 months time frame, is a super successful strategy. Especially if it's done purposeful, offering those employees mentorship or really working with someone to level them up. And those are often the ones that are the most grateful and end up staying the longest as well. So I just wanted to highlight that is a really good strategy. But I'm going to ask it as a question back, partly to the audience and partly Lane if she still is on. But I'm asking Rosie first. Rosie, do you believe you can hire a C player and turn them into a B player that then can become an A player? Or can you only move one level?
That's a ooh, I have to pull an ice and look up at the ceiling and think about it for a moment.
I don't know if that was a
Or
diss or a
no, I
compliment.
do. It was a joke because I do the same thing. Like, I cannot look at the camera and think at the same time. Um, so I would say yes, but I don't think it's black and white, and I don't think it's in every circumstance. Do I think it's possible? Yes, I've seen it happen. Um, and the way that I've seen it happen is either A, the circumstances under which so many Alana said I was typing that same question into the panel. Hi, Derek. Hi, Megan. Um, so it depends on the circumstances because I've seen C players, people show up as C players because they are in shitty circumstances. They have a really bad manager. Maybe they're going through some mental health struggles. They're doing a role that is not meant for them. And so, like, sometimes it's circumstantial that they're showing up as a C player when they have, I think everybody has the ability to be an A player, right? But there's like circumstances that are tying to why they're showing up as a C player. And so when that's the case, yes, I think if you can get them in the right seat with the right manager, with the right training, with the right level of support, whatever the case is, the right mental, emotional, physical support that they need, yes, I do think that can happen. I think it all depends. It doesn't just depend on their like IQ, as you would say, Andreas. It's also like what's their level of willingness to invest in themselves and to grow. And so if they have the capability, but they're not interested in growing and developing their skill sets, they're never going to be an A player anyway. But sometimes somebody's showing up as a C player when they have the capacity to be an A player. They're just not investing in themselves or don't have the resources that they need to invest in themselves. Vina, get the hell out of here. What if you only want A players?
Can we define what
and
it means?
we gave the answer already. Like she wasn't here on time. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's right. Vina, you're obviously a B player. Be on time next time. Is she gonna be mad?
But that was a funny moment. I want to say, so I agree with you. So I agree with you, Rosie. And I was about to say the clause came out, and I visualized that in my brain, and I started laughing. But what I was about to say is, I completely lost my train of thought. No, now I remember. I think in most cases you shouldn't live on hope and say just because you really like someone, they're a culture fit and they come in as a C player. The journey from C to an A is a long time frame, and you require so much effort to get into it. And I would say I actually introduced the B minus B plus mindset. I think a B plus is much easier to get to an A minus, and with longer time frame, you can get them to an A and an A plus as well. But getting a C plus into an A minus is gonna, like, you're looking at 24 months and massive coaching, person looking inside of themselves, having a life-changing moment, like something dramatically needs to happen for them to level up that way. Now, can people do it over 5 years? Absolutely. Can people do it while you can afford to pay for them, yet they still deliver the results? Harder, much harder.
Yeah.
So I would
I
say
agree.
the B or B plus is what you should be striving for, is my experience in most situations when you broaden out the team. We have so many good questions, so like we should
I
get
have
like
one.
so much comments and questions. Where do we
Oh,
get
I
started?
question. Do you guys have a chart that defines what these mean? Like, what is an A plus versus an A minus? What is a B plus versus a B minus? That would be
Yeah, I was about to say I
That's where
love
the
that
chart
question.
is.
So the issue is it's in the eye of the beholder, and it's also my definition of what an A player is today versus 10 years ago is day and night difference, and it's also situational. So if I am in a corporate setting with thousands of employees, an A player is extremely different compared to if it's an entrepreneurial startup early stage thing. Very different. So it's situational, and not only that is, but the thing is, you kind of know. And I usually think, like, if I sit in an interview with someone and I'm sitting there and thinking like, wow, I really want to hire this person, they really have done this before, They are interacting amazingly. Everyone seems to love the person, and they are eager to do the job. Like if I have that feeling, I know it's an A player. Like I know they're going to do a good job. Um, if I doubt it and I start second guessing, like could this person do it? Like boom, not an A player anymore. So sadly it's intuition. I hate to say it, but and it's where you're at. But that's why reference interviews or having someone that you regard as an A player that isn't in your company, ask them to do like a Godfather interview or an extra interview, and that way you get a second pair of eyes. Rosie, thoughts?
Yes, I would say, like, I'll say this with interviewing, like you just referenced, but in general too, there's like an art and a science. It's like the the art, yes, is the intuition side, but the science is there are certainly objective measures that you shared, Andreas, where you're like, what are the examples that they've given? How are they holding themselves in the conversation? How are they responding to my questions? What kind of questions are they asking? What examples have they given of things that align with my corporate values? So if we value integrity, and when I'm asking them certain questions, how am I seeing their integrity shine through? If we value teamwork, or if we're a fast-paced environment, how am I picking up on how fast they move? So that's like the science part. I feel like I'm talking with a lisp. I have Invisalign on the bottom, and I think because of these headphones, I like can't hear myself.
You're good.
Am I lisping?
No, you were eating, and like you could have just kept going, but then you interrupted yourself and like.
I know. Well, it feels
you were on a roll.
Like,
is what I was trying to
I
say.
was on a roll. I know, but then I felt the lisp.
You were really good.
It's like when people are singing, like how Andreas is one of the Backstreet Boys right now, and when they're singing, and Mariah Carey's like, "Wait, I can't hear myself. I have to start lip syncing." Like that's how I felt.
Yeah, I had another question. Okay, so from someone who hasn't had like 10 plus years in corporate, how do I know the difference between like not infatuation, but like, oh, cool, they fit my company values, but also knowing how to. I've never been through a timeline of like someone in my company for 2 years, and how they act in the first 3 months is different than how they act in a year. And does that really matter in this startup phase of my company?
I don't know if I follow the question. Maybe you do, Andreas.
So you will age out of the people you hire initially.
Okay.
And my wife obviously pointed out, please don't sing and dance. Like I don't sing. Actually, Vesna, before I sang, I was trying to sing because Vina called me a 90s boy band something. I can clearly not sing. I cannot dance. There is no discussion about it. I look like I'm having spasms if I'm dancing. I know. I'm just emptying out the list before she gets to all of these items herself.
We need Vesna on every single call. Just FYI, Vesna. Thank you.
Where was I going? Oh, yeah. So the people you have today, Ice, here's the thing. As you change and as the owner of the company and the founder, you are going to have to realize that the people that you had your first years with are typically not the people who take you to your future years. And that means you got to stay curious. The other thing is you got to make sure you work with mentors, coaches, other people that have done the journey in the past, so they will help you realize when you either are growing or plateauing. So it's the fastest way you can learn is just to have people around you that are your advisors that aren't in your business, and they will easily spot this. Like my peer advisors, they're all in their 60s, late 60s, and the reason is they have 20 years on me. So I that knowledge is, I don't want to live that knowledge. Like I'm going to get it from others, and like you're getting it from Rosie, me, Vina, and others. It's the same mindset. Operate with people that are way ahead of you and have already done what you want to do.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
I did. I was also just trying to think for people in the audience too. Like, then it's how do you find people who are willing to pour into you? But that's a whole nother topic. But
so when you say with that question, what do you mean? Are you asking that question? Can you elaborate on that question, Ice? Like, what do you mean by pour into you, pour into your employees? Like, can you articulate?
Oh, I was just saying that I have a privilege to be mentored, surrounded by great people who are more experienced than me, have gone through more years of entrepreneurship than me. But for other people who are just starting out as startup founders or as owners and founders, like how do they find people and bring them into their network that would be willing to mentor them and advise them to a similar degree? Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I
Um,
said, it's different from the hiring topic, but we can go on to that
yeah.
in a different live.
Yeah. We have no shortage of light topics. But yeah,
Yeah.
but it's kind of, it still ties in multiple ways, but one of them is, yeah, like the level of investment that people are willing to make. Like people show up and pour into you, Ice, for a number of reasons, but one of them is because like you pour into other people. Um, and so it's kind of like there are like tactical ways to do that, right? Strategies, but if you're somebody that naturally is transactional, it's going to be harder to find people that want to pour into you rather than if you just naturally want to help people for the sake of helping people.
Yep.
Couple of quick comments. Like we have so many questions and comments to go through. No more about my dancing and singing skills, please. That's not. I think Elena's comment is really good on Facebook. From my long
Yeah.
experience, it all depends on the current job market and unemployment levels. Being desperate for an employee is never fun. I agree. But as long as they align with my core values, I believe HR rehab will eventually be successful. I agree. I would rather take someone that is a culture fit, but they are less likely to perform at a top level than hiring someone that is not a culture fit and it's a brilliant asshole, basically, because they will destroy the culture for everyone else.
And what's interesting about her comment and what you just said too, what I see happen a lot is when people are desperate, they hire a C player in hopes that they can get them to be an A player or a B player in short order, and it just doesn't work that way. And so it's like going in with eyes wide open. I'm desperate. Am I willing to hire the C player? And if I am, then I have to be really honest about how much time I can afford to invest in this person, because I don't think it's worth hiring a C player and then spending a bunch of time and energy into growing them. But the most frustrating part for me being on the like HR talent development side in corporate was watching people be desperate, say, screw it, we're going to hire the C player. And then knowing full well with that person coming in that they were a C player, but then holding them to the standards of an A player. That drove me freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Like you hired them knowing what they were coming in, and now you're measuring them against something that's totally unreasonable. Like you were the one that made this choice.
But what is even worse, Rosie, is if the bar is here and you hire someone that is here, you don't give them the support like we talked about. But it was even worse is when they say, well, let's lower the bar then to their level. And now you level the bar of everyone else. So then people they don't show up, they don't deliver on their values anymore, like, or their results. That is even worse in my mind. I just want to say, like, I want to highlight another company. We have so many, so I'm trying to get through all of them. This was when we talked about how long before we know, and Megan said that, which is why I've recently learned to make contracts where they make 10% of the profit of the business they actually bring me, and contract will expire 3 months if they don't satisfy. So it's basically try before you buy mindset is how I interpret that.
Yeah, that's smart.
Tricky in some states. California can be a little tricky to do unless they come through an agency. We have noticed that. But that's a good comment. And then here's one I actually can't answer, but I thought you maybe can, Rosie.
Yeah, we didn't use specifically predictive index at
What's the
at my
question?
corporate company,
Because not
but
everyone can see it on Instagram.
So Jake Cross said, what are your thoughts on the predictive index for a quick and dirty feel for a candidate? So predictive index is like a personality assessment that a lot of companies use. We used a similar one, just not that specific one in my corporate life. And I found them to be very helpful. We used to use, so when we were hiring for candidates, we used to use, let's call it predictive index for simplicity, and DISC. And those were the two that we would use for interviewing. Then we found out that like there's a lot of bias that comes when you use something like DISC, which is another conversation for another day. But so then we moved to just exclusively using predictive index. What I liked about it was you could create benchmarks using predictive index. So predictive index is an assessment that the one that we use said like, okay, let's rank them on their verbal reasoning. Let's rank them on their quantitative reasoning, their qualitative reasoning, their verbal communication, their numerical reasoning, whatever, like all of these different things. The pace at which they work, how independent are they? What's their like working style? Do they like autonomy? Do they like to be told what to do? So, right, it ranks them on a bunch of different things. And what I liked about it is we could create benchmarks by the various roles. And so we would take like our top performers. So like I would choose 10 of our top performers for role A, 10 of our top performers who are in role B, etc. We would have them take the predictive index test. And then we would create a benchmark so that when we interviewed candidates, we would say, okay, here's how this person scored relative to our highest performers. So it would give us that like quick and dirty, like you said, Jake, just like that reference point to say, okay, if this is what a successful person looks like in this role at our company today, how does this candidate compare? So I do think that they're really helpful, even, and that's at a large company, but even at a small company, using some sort of assessment can be really valuable. So yeah, if you're like a 2-person company, maybe not, but I would say 5+, you should start having some form of that. I don't know if there's anything you'd add to that.
I already knew he was going to ask me. I already knew he was going to ask me.
What's the next hires you're going to do?
So I wrote down that I want to call with Rosie to talk about the strengths of each of my managers right now. And we're trying to see if I should transition one of my managers from project manager to basically like, I don't know what this role is called, but employee success. So checking in on like the surveys and like, how comfortable do you feel with this task or this role? What do you want more help on? And then organizing the workshops and stuff based on these check-ins. I don't know what this is.
So you essentially would switch her from like an external facing role to an internal role where she's supporting your employees?
She's currently doing project management and like doing revisions and iteration on our content. For context too, I have a social media agency. So that's what we're speaking on. So she does project management and she's editing. She's not the strongest at marketing skill or like video editing, but she has a better eye for like, one, her strengths are leading with Blue, and she loves developing these relationships. And she's grown a lot in leadership, hearing from our editors saying that like the communication's great, the check-ins are great. So she wants to do more of those things. I just don't know what that role is.
Yes. Yes, let's talk about it in general. And I hate to make like sweeping generalizations. I'm number 4 individualization. Elena Tang, I think she's still on here, is number 1 individualization. I'm like, everybody's unique. And they are. But I say that because like if somebody just slid a Clifton Strengths report in front of me and there was somebody that led with blue, green, purple, or orange, and they said, who do you want to be the manager or the supervisor? I would choose the blue person, the person that leads with relationship building. They're really good as people managers, supervisors, like that type of level. Doesn't mean you can't be if you're any other color, but they're just really good at investing in and nurturing those relationships and developing people. So I see the most success for them as that. And it typically, and Andreas, you and I have talked about this, it's like the skill set that makes you really good at, let's use this example, content editing, is not the same skill set that makes you really good at being a people manager. And so if she's like shining in one area, that makes sense. And she is better. You'll get greater returns if she's able to shine at managing people who actually are the ones that are excellent at content editing, if that makes sense the way I said it.
Yeah, I agree with her, and I want to give her the chance to lean more into her strengths. I'm now thinking, how do I best go through so many interviews to find a B+ person or whatever, a B person to fill her role as project manager? Because I think the issue I could foresee myself having is filling a gap as fast as possible rather than like going through the reps to find the person who's best fit. I haven't done multiple interviews on anything. It's been references or proximity. So
you should be pulling her into that process. But sorry.
Yeah, references and proximities are the best people to hire, I want to say.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't come with friendship baggage. And then the other thing I want to say is like what Rosie does here with the Clifton Strength is an extremely valuable tool, especially for someone in your company size, because the first 5 hires, like if you had everyone with exactly the same profile and no one wants to do the job, like you have a problem. Because what people tend to do is hire people they want to hang out with early in their startup and that they like instead of what is required to do the job. And I would say the opposite of your Clifton Strength is just mildly overlapping. And yes, I agree as well. Everyone is unique, but that's why it's like there's a whole practice around this that needs to be more known for people that just start their companies, because they hire on who they like rather than who can do the job that they don't want to do themselves.
Yes, there's like we used to do HR training on bias in interviewing, and yeah, I forget what the name of it is, right? There's recency bias, so you're more likely to be interested in hiring the candidate or thinking about the candidate you interviewed most recently, even if you have a pool that you're assessing. But yeah, I forget what the name of the bias is, where you basically want to hire people that are just like you. And even with DISC, when we were using DISC for interviewing, we like, so DISC is DISC. DISC is dominance, I is influencing, S is steadiness, C is conscientiousness. I think like I've sometimes they change the words around depending on what model you use, but I is outgoing, like extroverted communication style and people focused. And so if somebody was a high I, they were like, it's like somebody that's high woo. They're like high five in, making best friends in the interview. So like everybody really liked them because they had charisma, they liked people, they were outgoing, but it was harder to assess if they actually have the skills that they need. And conversely, if you were a high C, you were introverted and you were outcomes focused. So you were more quiet, more reserved. You probably experience interviewing a lot of those, right? That's like a software engineer are all high C's. Like it's harder to pull stuff out of them because they're not going to communicate it as well. And so being a good interviewer is really important, having a good interview process in place and having diversity in thought in how those candidates are evaluated. So like you should not be the only person interviewing that replacement for her. She should be involved in that as well.
Well said. I want to make sure we cover those really well said, Rosie. Like many people interviewing, not one. And then don't hire the person you want to go play golf or go to the club with or whatever you want to do.
Go to the club.
Cecilia said, I think Cecilia McCundy, for sure it gets better with experience. So you will get some and miss some, but it gets better. I agree. Like the more experience you get, the more sure you are. And here's my life lessons too. If you get in the wrong person, we focus a little bit more on that, but if you get in the wrong person, first of all, you hire slowly. That's super important, and really vet them, but you fire quickly. Like as soon as you know, and I think it was actually another comment made. I lost that one. Oh, here it was Jesse. He said, "How do you handle a situation where you thought they were an upper level player, but after 90 to 120 days realized they are lower level and potentially not a culture fit? Boom, out, fired.
Cut them loose. Yeah.
Cut them loose instantly. There is a great job for a great company for that person. It's not just where you're at. Like the worst combo is if they don't fulfill the GWC get it wanted capacity to do it, and they're not a culture fit. Like every second you kill them is toxic to your organization. There is no debate. Like they're gone the next day.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I've been tracking this for years now, but I know when a person know they had to fire someone, and I see when they actually do it. And as soon as you get the emotion of the person have said like, yeah, we're having some issues, like boom, fired. Like there is no discussion. Like you cannot, as soon as as someone says that, they always end getting rid of them. Okay, maybe 1 in 50 got on a pip and then actually turned around because they had something going on. But by the time someone says something and a manager or someone on a director level lower down have said, I'm like having question marks on this person, within whatever time frame it is, they're gone. Like don't keep them around. Like if you need to let go of someone, like just do it. Like instantly. Every day you don't is a negative tax for your business. You're destroying your culture. and you can still be graceful about it, but there is no discussion, like instantly. Trust me on this. And it feels horrible. Every fire, the first fire you made in your life, it's a scar you will keep for the rest of your life. Like you will remember that you changed someone's life, but you have to change many other people. After you realize that, you just do it. That sounded
Yeah.
so cold-hearted, but it's like I'll stand my ground on this topic. Like hire really slow, but fire super fast.
I agree. The only thing, and I think you'd agree with this too, the only thing like where it gets more complex is if you have a people manager that's not a good people manager, so they're not giving them opportunities to succeed. They didn't give them the training that they needed. So like they have question marks, but their question marks aren't necessarily a reflection of the individual. It's a reflection of the manager who wasn't willing to invest the time into onboarding them or to training them or setting them up for success. And so that's where it can just get complicated. And like as a leader, you have to be able to push back on the manager to say like, well, what have you done? Like,
Yeah.
where are the question marks coming from? So I do agree. So if you are a person where you're like, I don't know, are the question marks because of me or are they because of them? Right. Like that's where having other people to talk to about this can help you understand, is it a you problem or is it a them problem?
In many cases, it's a both problem.
Yeah.
Really?
So if no, because if the manager is not doing a good job, the manager needs to go as well.
Oh.
Agreed.
No, but it's like
Agreed.
you have to, but then that's actually, so it's a cascading problem upwards. But you have to, if one is, I get it, but if you have had multiple people who just can't seem to fit with a specific manager. So I always, like you heard me say this multiple times. So it's like 1 is an occasion, 2 is a pair, and 3 is a pattern. So I go after the 3 is a pattern rule here.
Wait,
So
can you repeat that, please?
1 is an occasion, it happened. 2 is a pair, but 3 is a pattern. So if I see a manager who is onboarding people and they can't keep them, or they are doing something wrong over and over and over again, after 3 times, yeah, the manager might be the problem. And there might be another role for both of these people in the company. You can also do rehiring another position, but it's after seeing, so like after being in this role for so long, like it's not worth the effort to try to save everyone. Like it doesn't work. It just doesn't. And the person will feel miserable as well. I mean, it's better with an early failure than a late failure, especially when it comes to hiring fire people.
Yeah.
Ice is like, oh, I am.
Okay, so I got 3 minutes before my next call.
Okay, so let's do
wait,
like this.
I had one
Questions
more
from the audience, comments from the audience, relevant topic, whatever. Or Ice, direct us for the next few minutes, and Rosie and I continue. I just want to double check that I don't have something.
Yeah, Ice has a question. I don't know what happens when we lose her, but we'll figure that out.
Oh, because it's on my live.
We start another one.
Yeah.
Rosie, will you start another one?
You guys have a strong following. I have strong faith that all 17 people will be on there. So one thing I'm thinking about is you track metrics for churn of your customers. Am I supposed to do the same thing for churn of my employees, or like, and if so, if I'm hiring slow, what is the hiring process to replace those people? How early do I start that in advance so I still hire slow, but I'm prepped to hire on time?
First gut feel is you're too small to keep the metrics. Like it's a gut feel at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't matter yet.
20 people, 30 people, like now you start getting interested in that.
That said,
or maybe even 50. Like,
I agree. You don't have to track turnover yet. Like it's like you probably track it in your head, right? But yes, you should be. If somebody isn't working out, then you should start sourcing for that person before, like maybe once you get them on a performance plan, right? Start putting your feelers out there. Right. Like maybe you don't have a formal performance plan, but once you start delivering feedback that like this isn't working and you have to turn this around in X amount of time, you should also be putting your feelers out about other candidates. At least where you're at in the size of your company.
That's a great strategy. Like go look for the next candidate off the record if you are dependent on someone just moving the work forward. If they're not toxic, they're just not fit to where you need to go now. start looking before you let go. So there is a smoother transition. And sometimes you can also overhire. So you hire a couple of extra people for a couple of months just to make sure if you're not or if you're not sure on where you're going to go, that's an alternative strategy. But that's more when you're larger. But in your role, like Rosie's suggestion is the best one. Like you start looking even if you don't need them and network. So you have a group of people ready to go for when you scale up or when you need them.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing I just wanted to say, and Rose and I talked about this super quickly, and I think we're in the same space here, but I wanted to leave you with this, Ice, before you run off, and that is A players, always use them to hire other people. Don't let your B players hire them because they will hire C players so they can dominate them and look better themselves.
A players always use them to hire
Always
people?
use A players to hire other people.
Oh, always use A players. Okay, yeah.
Don't let your B players hire them because they will hire further down so they can control them, but your least common denominator is now shrinking.
And I would add to that, there's, depending on how you define A player, if your A player is, as Andres would call a brilliant asshole A player, don't let that one be the one that makes the determinations. They can have a voice, right? If you have a panel, but let it be the A player that also gives a crap about people. Let them be the one to make the decision. Like you care about people and you're a high performer. Like those are the people who should be making the final calls on who to hire.
Agree.
Non-competitive people.
No, when I say brilliant assholes, A players, I just want to say, I mean, people sometimes in larger companies, you don't need this. You shouldn't have any of these guys. But for me, or if you're part of a larger company, you're going to have some people that are experts, rock stars within a certain area, but they might not be the best team players. And if that's the case, don't let that person then hire people, have other people help in the hiring process. Because it's basically another way of saying it. GWC, yes on that person. Culture fit, not so much. So that's what you want to avoid because they will hire people who are not culture fit.
Heard.
Actually, Rosie, should we end this? I think we covered the topic pretty quickly, and I actually have another meeting as well. So I think we are all jumping off.
We did it. Otherwise, we'd be on this for 7 more hours. So yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Ice, for coming at the last minute too.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Bye, for the topic. Bye.
Bye.